Hey, what's poppin'? We back with another video. Now today, we finna be reacting to Frank Turk. Somebody told me to do this too. I'll give y'all the backstory on me. I actually went to college. My first 2 years in college were at a Bible college. I went to Ohio Midwestern. It's shut down now, but I went to Ohio Midwestern, and I learned a lot about biblical history and things like that. So I'm definitely somebody that can definitely talk in this area for sure, man. I can talk in this area. This is definitely something I'm extremely familiar with, but somebody told me that I would like Frank Turk a lot, and somebody else told me that he's a snake. So I was like, okay, well, like, there's two opinions. I love people who have controversial topics and controversial conversations. So if this is controversial, we'll give it a go. Y'all tell me what y'all think. Oh, no, we're not even done with the video yet. I'm telling you. Anyways, let's go. Cross-examination. Cross-examining.
How do you account for the errors of the scribes when the New Testament was handed down person to person?
Yeah, excellent question.
That's a really good question. Wow. How do you account for the errors in the scribes? Let's do it.
There are errors that we know about. Why? Because we can compare the documents, we can compare the manuscripts and see where the errors are. In fact, let me see if I can show you a representation of that, because it's better seen than it is described.
Okay.
Here it is. Let's say you have, here's the original, which we don't have. We don't, at least we don't think we have any original documents, okay?
So I always make a point to people who, I think I know where he's actually going with this. He's going to say that each copy has a different version, right? But not each copy has maybe little different things, but they all have similarities in them, right? I think we should be careful with that. We don't have the original autograph copy. Because we don't have the original autograph copy, we don't know what it said. So I think that's a huge thing that we should deal with, right? First, instead of all the translations that came from probably one. The oldest Bible that we have, the oldest known version of the Old Testament, is called Codex Sinaiticus, right? And it was found in I think it was either St. Catherine's in Egypt, or yeah, it was St. Catherine. So Codex Sinaiticus, that's the oldest codex we have. The oldest full known copy of the Old Testament that we have is called the Septuagint, right? I need you guys to look into this and look into how all this came to be under the Ptolemy II, Ptolemy the First and Second, and my nose itching. I ain't doing crack, y'all, but Ptolemy the First and Second. Look into all this, but the story is shady, and you can only find the story of how it came to be in the letter of Aristeas. And in the letter of Aristeas, because I'm just getting, there's a reason why I'm saying all this for this. And in the letter of Aristeas, it's pseudepigrapher. Like, scholars have noted to be pseudepigrapher. So how the Bible came to be through the Septuagint is already false. So what it means is that the story and letter of Aristeas is not real. That's like some other way the Bible came to be. So Ptolemy brought the Bible into existence in another way. So who knows where he got that information? And that's where you should start. Like, going off the copies that have been translated down through history, like copy after copy after copy, because the copies that we have are all codexes. And like, if you go past the codexes and then you start looking at biblical texts, you're kind of being snakish with that. But let's keep going.
They're all copies, okay? And let's say you find 4 different copies. And in the first copy, you see an error right here. And then another copy, there's another error right there. In the third copy, there's another error right there. And in the fourth copy, there's an error right there. Can you reconstruct the original?
Yes.
Yes. And that's what scholars do. The original, this happens to be Romans 3:26. God is just and the justifier of the one who has faith in Jesus. Now the note here is the New Testament documents have far fewer variations than this example. So yes, sometimes scribe made mistakes, but in virtually all cases, we know what the mistake was, and we can correct it by comparing it with other documents. Now, you might say, why wouldn't...
Virtually all cases? That's not 100% true. Like for example, one of the biggest, and it leads to like a huge misconception on what the Bible really meant, was at the very beginning of the book, in the beginning, right? In the beginning, in some cases can be seen being translated inaccurately. No, I'm sorry, being translated inaccurately. in a beginning is what some translations say was the first part of it, right? Either a beginning or the beginning. That little detail right there changes the whole trajectory on how the book goes. And if you know anything about biblical history, you know there was like 4 different kinds of scholars. And I can't think of what they're called right now, but it's 4 different styles, right? And those 4 different styles, what they believe wrote the Old Testament, right? Wrote the first 5 books of Moses. And you can find it like a lot in Genesis, like how God becomes omnipresent in one part, then seems it's a lot to talk about. But no, these are all things that lead to scholars being able to say that the Bible could say multiple things. It could say, like that example he gave was just, weird. But hey, anyways, let's keep going.
God just, if this is true, why wouldn't he just maintain the original? I'm speculating here, but I think 2 reasons. Number 1, if we had the original, we might venerate it. We tend to venerate things like that, right? But number 2, if I had the original, what could I do to it? I could alter it, right? Mm-hmm. But if you had a copy, 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 and I had a copy, and I changed my copy, is everyone going to know who changed their copy? Yeah, because when you get all your copies together and compare it to mine, you go, Turek, you heretic, why'd you do that? Right? So by not preserving the original, you actually are able to preserve the original better.
So what if the error...
Or no, like, wow, that was really backwards. Look at Shakespeare, right? We know Shakespeare wrote it. Or some people question whether or not he did. But Shakespeare's stories haven't changed, right? You have things from the first century, like a good example, like they have another Pentateuch from the first century that was written by Dorodus of Sidon. There was another, like, there's the Pentateuch of the Bible, and then there's the Pentateuch he wrote that was written by Dorodus of Sidon from the same region where the Bible came out of, just to let y'all know. Look that up. Look up Dorodus of Sidon, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But that wasn't altered. That remained throughout the centuries the same. So, why would it be the Bible? Why would the Bible be the only thing that people would alter? I don't know. That was a little weird, but hey, it is what it is.
It's not that simple. What if it's a difference in concept? So if we have these copies and say copy 1 gets 12 copies, copy 2 gets 24 copies, and then you've got copy 4 that gets 400 copies, but copy 4 is the incorrect copy, then how do we justify truth in that? As well as how do we justify the truth in Jesus' exact words when we didn't hear them ourselves?
Okay. There is no significant doctrine, theological doctrine, that is affected by any variant. And who admits this? Bart Ehrman himself. Okay? So Bart Ehrman, the great skeptic, admits that the New Testament documents are reliable. In fact, let me show you a quote from him, because this quote is very right on the money. He wrote the book Misquoting Jesus. I don't know if you've heard of this book, but in 2005 he wrote a book called Misquoting Jesus, a popular book in which he tries to insinuate that we can't trust what the New Testament documents have said.
Okay.
Yet, the very same year, 2005, he wrote an academic work. He updated an academic work with his mentor, Dr. Bruce Metzger from Princeton University. In fact, Metzger was the top manuscript scholar of the last century. Mm-hmm. And in that book, he agrees with Metzger that the New Testament documents are copied accurately. Now, why is he coming to 2 different conclusions the same year? Same evidence. The only thing I can speculate is when you say to the academic community something wrong, they'll correct you on it. But when you say something wrong to the lay community, they don't know any better in most cases. You can sell a lot of books when you say the New Testament documents aren't copied reliably. That gets you a review in the New York Times, that gets you on the Colbert Show, the Jon Stewart Show. You sell a lot of books. Right, what's that?
A textbook to be studied. We're studying Ehrman now.
You're studying Misquoting Jesus?
No, his textbook, the New Testament.
Okay, well that one that he co-wrote with Metzger is actually good. But this one, now here's what he says. This is in the appendix of the paperback version, so this comes out a year or 2 later from the original Misquoting Jesus. He's interviewed, and in the interview, here's what he says. Check this out. This is a quote from the book, page 252. He says, Bruce Metzger is one of the great scholars of modern times, and I dedicated the book to him because he was both my inspiration for going into textual criticism and the person who trained me in the field. I have nothing but respect and admiration for him. And even though we may disagree on important religious questions, he is a firmly committed Christian and I am not. We are in complete agreement on a number of very important historical and textual questions. What are they in agreement on? If he and I were put into a room and asked to hammer out a consensus statement on what we think the original text of the New Testament probably looked like, there would be very few points of disagreement, maybe 1 or 2 dozen places out of many thousands. The position I argue for in misquoting Jesus does not actually stand at odds with Professor Metzger's position that the essential Christian beliefs are not affected by textual variants in the manuscript tradition of the New Testament. Well, why would you write misquoting Jesus then? Not you, but Bart Ehrman, right? The book maybe should be called Misquoting Ehrman, because he doesn't even agree with himself. So it seems that even Ehrman, when push comes to shove, admits that we do have an accurate copy of the New Testament documents.
You know, it's interesting he picked Bart Ehrman. I wonder if he would do... What is his name? He wrote The Bible Under Earth. Israel Finkelstein. I wonder if he'd do Israel Finkelstein. I just wonder. I wonder if he'd do Israel Finkelstein.
Now, your second question is, how do we know verbatim what Jesus said? We might not know verbatim what he said, because there are no quote marks in Greek, so we're not always sure exactly if it's a quote or if it is a paraphrase. Because Jesus probably spoke in Aramaic, yet the documents are written in Greek. But that's okay. You can communicate truth in different languages, and you don't have to be exact with what he said. You can get the gist of it. In fact, Jesus said, he was an itinerant preacher. He probably gave the same talks in several different places, right? I mean, if you followed me around, I go around to different campuses. I give the same presentations over and over again, but I might say things slightly differently in one place than another place. So maybe one guy heard it one way, another guy heard it another way. We have the gist of what Jesus said, and that's really all God wanted to tell us. Also, you might imagine that at those times...
So the Old Testament, because the transcript that he was going by based off of what he first said, the Old Testament, you get a copy, you get a copy, you get a copy. So I guess I never really asked this question, but I think I know the answer to it. Do we have an original autographed copy of the original New Testament? We don't have the Old Testament for sure. But do we have an original autographed copy of the New Testament? And can we trust what it says based off the fact that you can say that the early church fathers in the first century were putting things into the writings? They were changing like certain things by certain scholars, like what's his name, Josephus. They changed something into what Josephus's writings were, and I'll get back to you guys on that later. I can't think of what the name is right now. But it was something in Josephus's writings they changed. He was a devout Jew, so he would never call Jesus the Son of God. I remember they changed that. I think Tacitus was another writing they changed. But the early church fathers were testimonies from testimonies from testimonies. Like it was like telephone almost. Like they wrote they were saying that they were getting the information from somebody who was somebody who knew Jesus. That's basically what they were saying. I mean, that's clearly what it was saying. It's just a quick game of telephone. This whole religion is all based on faith, but that's why we believe it. It's all faith, faith-based, and that's good. But I like his opinion, though. I really think he'd be a good person to debate. It'd be interesting.
People had highly developed memories. They could memorize complete books. We can't even remember our phone number because we have all these devices that remember it all for us. So these people were in an oral culture, and they memorized things quite well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Grace.
I like Frank Turk, though. He's really respectful. I like that. I like that conversation because he didn't try to make her look stupid or embarrass her for the questions that she had. And it's okay to have questions about God. There's a lot of information that definitely needs to be talked about. But hey, thank you for tuning in. Y'all have a good one.